All right,
can
welcome
do the British,
everybody.
not the posh.
Welcome everybody, Mahaba. My name is Greg Jenks. I'm president of the Sabille community in Australia for my sins, which are many. Welcome to this latest session in the series of webinars which we're hosting this year. And a particular welcome, of course, to Wisam Salsaa, who's joining us from Bethlehem, and in particular from the Waldorf Hotel. I was explaining to a PhD student from Iran who's working with me to improve his English, believe it or not. And I was explaining to him about the Waldorf Hotel and that it was not the one he'd heard about in New York. But we'll be hearing more about that from Wisam very shortly. Let's begin with a prayer. And as we pray, can we also particularly keep in our hearts, of course, the recent Palestinian martyr, Shireen Abu Akleh, who was shot by Israeli forces a couple of weeks ago now at Jenin. And then I'm sure most of us saw and were horrified by the violence that broke out at her funeral and the actions of the so-called security forces at that time. So let's continue to hold her and her family, her community, and indeed her nation in our prayers. And perhaps pray as well for the young Israeli soldiers and police officers who are being brutalized and morally harmed by their call upon them from their own society and from their own government. Let's pray for all the victims of the occupation, whether they hold a gun or whether they have a gun pointed at them. We give thanks for the work of Sabille Ecumenical Liberation Theology Center in Jerusalem and around the world. And we pray especially for our webinar today with Wisam. And we pray that one more step will be taken towards justice and freedom for all the peoples of Palestine and Israel. Amen. Can I remind people to keep your account on mute, your mics on mute, at least during the initial presentation. After we've introduced Wisam and repeated our welcome to him, Wisam will talk for 20-25 minutes or so about a number of topics that are on his heart, particularly those topics that he's most passionate about at the present time. In the meantime, of course, we will have some questions of our own about what is the situation in Bethlehem like right now? What is the situation more generally throughout Palestine like at the present time? But we'll have an opportunity today to listen and engage in conversation. So we'll allow Wisam in a moment about 25 minutes to speak, and then we'll have about 20 minutes for questions and discussion. And then we'll wrap it up with some final thoughts and a prayer at the end. I'm sure all of those in the meeting that are in Australia are very well aware that today is the federal election, and that in about 55 minutes' time, the polling booths will be closing on the eastern half of the country, which is where the government is determined, basically. And we're hoping that the celebrations will then begin. But we will try not to bring a hex on ourselves by being too confident. Suffice to say that if, as expected, the Australian Labor Party does win government, they are committed to recognising the state of Palestine within the first term of government. So we do anticipate there might just be some changes in the way that Australia positions itself vis-a-vis the conflict in Israel and Palestine. So with no more political comments from me, other than the fact that my colour of my shirt is chosen deliberately, let's hand over to Wisam. Yeah, you can see a few clever people smiling. Hand over to Wisam. Habibi, it's wonderful to have you with us. You and I have not met previously, so far as I know. You're much more famous than I am, so I'm sure I would remember meeting you, but you wouldn't even remember meeting me. But it's fantastic to have you with us. We appreciate your passionate engagement with the resistance and with the fight for justice and human rights. And we look forward to an engaging conversation with you. And we know that it's going to be a great time. So thank you very much. And we're here to listen and to learn, and we appreciate you making the time available for us on a Saturday morning in Bethlehem. Over to you, my friend.
Thank you. Can you hear me first?
We certainly can.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for your interest and for your invitation. Thank you, Omar. And thank you, Sabil's friends. Been always impressed with Sabil's work around the world. And I think what you guys are doing is amazing, and it's very supportive and it's very helpful for Palestinians. So thank you. Yeah, I wanna today. I think my understanding from Omar that probably some of you want to hear about the hotel and what we are doing at the hotel, at the Waldorf Hotel, and I will move from there. Briefly about the Waldorf Hotel. We opened the Waldorf Hotel in 2017, and it was a secret project until the opening. The background of this project is a relationship between, like a friendship between Banksy and myself. I met artist Banksy in 2005. At that time, I was a tour guide interested in fair tourism and in alternative tourism. I always believe that it is not fair the way that tourism is run in our country, because tourism been always controlled by the Israelis. Israelis were taking all of the benefits out of this industry, as well as they kept away the tourists from interacting with the Palestinians. For a long time, the tourists that came to visit Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus Christ, they went to see the church only and left without even interacting with people, keeping the stereotypes or the images that they gained from the media about the Palestinians in their head. I still believe that this is unfair, and if tourists want to come in this way just to visit the stones, there is no need for them, or I would not really, in a personal level, welcome them here, because this is really unfair. So I met Banksy in 2005, who came to check out the wall that the Israelis built around the Palestinian towns and cities. This wall, which is almost 800 kilometers long, part of it is a concrete wall, and the other part is a fence, electrical fence with barbed wires, converted the Palestinian towns into an open-air prison. So Banksy came to check it out, and of course, as an artist, he came to paint on the wall. When he came over, I never knew that this was Banksy, or actually, I never heard of Banksy ever. He stayed at my place, and he painted the wall. I took him all around Palestine to check out things. He went to refugee camps to check how people are living. Then he painted he did some graffiti and paintings on the wall and left. And for me, that was it. Some months later, I saw a report on Al Jazeera TV talking about the graffiti that he'd done and about the paintings that he'd done on the wall. And they were saying Banksy, Banksy. So that was the first time in my life to hear this name, Banksy. So I checked him out. I realized that this is he's a famous artist. And of course, it was a big surprise for me. I managed to catch up with him again. And later on, we've done several projects. I helped him in several projects. Now, for a long time, I mean, I was, you know, it was my dream to do something in Bethlehem where it could be educational for the tourists or for the visitors that come to Bethlehem and to Palestine. And in 2008, I rented space on the building that I am in now to do something related to the wall and to graffiti and the art, because I believe that this could be a hub where people could, like visitors, could stop and learn a little bit about the wall and about our situation. But unfortunately, I couldn't continue mainly for financial reasons. And of course, my idea was very little in comparison to where we are today. Then, you know, I kept communicating with Banksy, and 2005, you know, we decided to create the Waldorf Hotel. The space was almost ready. Like the building that we are in was an empty building. It was a residential building that was not used for 14 years because the families who were living here left the space because of the wall. We are only 4 meters away from the separation wall. So like when you get out of like a balcony of the rooms, you don't see anything. You just see a room. You just see a wall. So the families who were living here left, and so I rented the building. We knocked down everything inside the building, and we started to build the hotel and the concept that we have decided. It was a big surprise for the local community and the international community to hear of the Waldorf Hotel, because, you know, we just opened. It was a sudden opening, like no introduction to it, and you know, because of Banksy, because the great work that Banksy did at the hotel and his artwork at the hotel. Like second day, the Waldorf Hotel was called by media as one of the most famous hotels in the world. The hotel is known as the hotel with the worst view in the world. So we sell our rooms according to the view. The worse the view is, the more expensive the room becomes. This is how it works at the hotel. We have the largest collection of Banksy artwork in the world. And we have also an art gallery dedicated for Palestinian artists. We have a museum that talks about life under occupation. We call it the Museum of the Wall. And we also used to have a spray paint shop just outside the hotel, and also a place where you can make stencils to give the opportunity for the visitors to paint on the wall and to do their graffiti on the wall, called Walmart. Currently it's closed because of COVID, but you know, we do lots of interesting things related to the theme of the hotel and the goal of the hotel. Now the hotel itself is the whole hotel is an art installation, and coming to the hotel gives you a big experience of life in Palestine and life under occupation. We found that it's a great, like, art is a great way to communicate with people. We at the Waldorf Hotel managed to bring our story, or take our story out of Palestine to reach lots of people around the world in a very positive way. You probably know that hundreds or even like thousands of Palestinians died trying to make their stories reach the international community, because our story is unheard story. story is controlled. Most of the people around the world, they would hear only the Israeli side of the story. My experience working in tourism and traveling around the world, that if you ask people to close their eyes and imagine or think of Palestinians, or they would think of violence and terrorism, which is unfair. People know very little, and I always blame myself and our people for this, because this is our job, to make our story reachable and available to everyone in the world. People like in the world, they don't understand that, like, for example, when you see people in Gaza, young people in Gaza burning tires, they don't understand that they are not really idiots to burn tires and to pollute Gaza, as much as this is a way of expressing their frustration and anger on the situation that they're living in. They are expressing their anger to live in Gaza, like as a young man, to live in Gaza for your entire life with no chance of getting out of Gaza, to express your frustration to born in a prison and to continue all of your life living in a prison with no attention from the international community. So art is a very powerful way of making the story available to everyone and make lots of people ready to hear this story. I just want to give you some examples. In 2017, we organized a party when it was that was on the 2nd of November. 2nd of November, it was 100-year for Balfour Declaration. I don't know if you heard of Balfour, but Balfour was a British minister who promised the Jewish people, the Zionist people, or Zionist movement, a homeland in Palestine. This is very confusing, by the way. He was a British, very generous guy who offered a land that does not belong to him, to the Zionist movement. So instead of giving them a land in the UK to live in, he gave them our land. Okay, and the result of that was deporting or kicking out over 700,000 Palestinians who became refugees. Now, just a quick stop here that I want to remind you, I'm sure most of you are aware that we Palestinians, in origin, we are Jews, Christians, Muslims. Palestine is the name of a land. Palestine is not the name of a religion. Okay, so Palestinians are Jews, Christians, Muslims. The problem is not with the Jewish people. The problem started with the Zionist movement, okay, which was pure political movement that messed up the Middle East, and the cause of the conflict today is related to this Zionist movement, who neglected our rights and our rights as Palestinians even to exist, and still controlling our life, living under the occupation. So anyway, in 2017, and the 2nd of November, we organized a tea party just right outside the hotel. And it was this tea party, the celebration was curated also by Banksy, who asked us to bring children from the refugee camps. We have them sitting on tables, wearing helmets with burned British flags on them, and we decorated the street with burned British flags. And then it was written on the wall, like we carved on the wall like a black says sorry, and it was covered with a curtain. And then the Queen of England came. It was like a girl dressing like a queen, having also like queen face. She opened the curtain, and it was like just trying to give the message that yes, what the British government should do is apologize for the Palestinians instead of organizing a celebration in the UK to celebrate 100 years for Balfour Declaration. Anyway, I want to tell you that during that day, like tens or even like over 100 journalists from around the world, from major corporations were there, and that celebration was reported everywhere. It was in front page in lots of papers around the world. Things that we cannot achieve even with tanks could be achieved through art. Okay, the art is so powerful, so interesting, so useful, and this is how we function as the Waldorf Hotel, as an art project, really connected in Palestine, using the art to tell our story. We have I hope you could come one day and visit our museum. We have a very interesting museum that talks about life under occupation and talks about the wall. We've done lots of work on it recently under the supervision of Banksy, and our museum is well received by the local community, of course, and it's well received by the international community, like all of the international visitors that come, whatever their background is, they really come out of it with showing respect to what's in it, as well as from the Israelis that come and visit the hotel sometimes. The hotel is located nearby the checkpoint, which is, I don't know if you've been there, but like coming through the wall from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, like the first thing or one of the first things that you would see going to Bethlehem is the Waldorf Hotel. So where we are is in area called Area C, which is an area that is still under Israeli control. Let's quickly back to Oslo agreement that was signed between the Palestinians and the Israelis. They divided the West Bank. The West Bank is only 28% from the historical Palestine. Okay, so this is our dream to come state for us as Palestinians is to have 28% of what was the historical Palestine to become our future independent Palestinian state, of course, including East Jerusalem. And this was approved by the United Nations and the international community. The whole country recognized these resolutions, but of course, we are still living under occupation. Even this 28%, which is the West Bank, in 1993 was divided for 3 parts called Area A, B, C. Simply, Area C makes 60% of the West Bank remained under direct Israeli occupation, under direct Israeli control. This is where we are. Okay, you have Area B, which has mainly the big villages. It makes about 30% of the West Bank. Is shared between the Palestinians and Israelis. Israelis are controlled of security. Palestinians are in control of other things. Area A, which is only 10%, these are the big Palestinian cities like Gaza, Bethlehem, Ramallah, Nablus. So they moved all of the big burden, the burden of people and services to people and security to people to the Palestinian Authority. So we are in Area C. Now, the Israelis could come and visit the hotel because we are in Area C, but still they have difficulties to cross the checkpoint because their soldiers don't allow them to cross the checkpoint. But we are very much interested to have more Israelis to come and see, because unfortunately, I mean, this is also one of the problems that we have, that even we are neighbors as Palestinians and Israelis, but we don't get the opportunity to meet with each other. Big big gap between both societies, with, of course, very strong stereotypes. Palestinians, of course, we like when we talk about the Israelis, the first thing that will come to our mind are soldiers and settlers and killers and tanks and Apaches. Same, I think, from the Israeli sides, when they talk about Palestinians, they connect with violence. So Israelis, most of Israelis, unfortunately, especially the young generation, have no clue of how we live as Palestinians or who we are as Palestinians. So one of our main interests as a hotel is, of course, the hotel is open for everyone to visit, but one of our main interests, or we would love to see more Israelis to come to the hotel, because I believe that we should, this community or this society should change. I mean, we should also work on changing the Israeli society, a society who called themselves a civilized society, pioneers of human rights, or queer movements, whatever, they keep all of these under the cover of the occupation. I think those people, I mean, I always wonder how those people could accept, being abusers and oppressors for another nation. I really don't understand how, what kind of mentality setup that they have. So I think that bringing them, or like having an encounter, or such an encounter at the Waldorf Hotel, could be very shocking and very unexpected, to see how we live under occupation that is made by them. It's not like this is their product. This is what they are doing against us as Palestinians. We also at the hotel have an art gallery. Art gallery is dedicated for Palestinian artists, and like the tour inside the hotel is a little bit, I mean, part of it could be so tough going through the museum. So like after the museum, people would go to the art gallery, and we try to communicate with people through the amazing art that we have at our gallery, by different Palestinian artists from all over Palestine, started from Gaza up to Galilee. We also have a space dedicated for younger Palestinian artists. We do lots of work with young Palestinian artists through exhibitions, and also we organize art competitions for younger Palestinian artists. And I would say proudly that like in the last 3 years, we managed to bring up really very good artists, like young artists that no one ever heard of, to become stars in art in our region, and some of them even reach the international level. Yeah, it's quickly I would say that we closed for 2 years because of COVID, and we reopened recently. Just like 2 months ago, we reopened the hotel, and we are still really kind of struggling, because as I've mentioned, that we have a big team working at the hotel. It's not just a hotel. We have our gallery, we have a museum, we have lots of details that requires lots of people to work at. We have almost 50 employees working at the hotel. Excuse me. Nowadays, we have less working, like less than 50, because we don't really have the load or the volume to have this much employees. Yeah, so we are, but also like, living in Palestine is not living in a normal place. I mean, here things change very quickly. To be a Palestinian, you have to think of lots of details that you, as like live in Australia, you don't have to think about. Of course, definitely you don't have to think about the micro details that we have to think of as Palestinians. So we still have lots of concerns because of the political situation that never improves. You are hearing the news, escalation everywhere. To be honest with you, like situation never improved. Like since I was born, I think this situation never improved. Never improved. Like every day, okay, the next day is the worst day for us. It's not a better day for us. And this is very obvious. It's not a feeling, but it's a reality, including the like the activities that we witness in the ground, including building illegal settlements in the West Bank, including expanding the wall and continue building the wall, including the measurements that they are imposing on us. I mean, in all levels, including also the international, the sanctions that the international community is putting on Palestinians, okay, to make them accept what, in the end, what the Israelis want us to do. So unfortunate, we are under pressure in different levels. We are not getting much. I mean, we get, of course, international solidarity, but when it comes to serious things, we are still, we are still have. I mean, we still have to suffer because of the policies of many countries around the world. Besides that, we have lots of interior challenges and related to like some ideological issues, and so our Palestine never been stable. It has a very weird like the political situation has very weird formation. Like for example, we Palestinians in our current situation have to, I mean, we are required to defend our occupiers. Okay, we are required to defend our occupiers. Okay, so weird, so strange, but this is the reality that that we live in. We Palestinians never been, I think, I mean, like lots of people recently started to compare the reaction of the international community when the war on Ukraine took place, to compare it with the situation of Palestinians, and I think that yeah, I mean, which is good to compare because there is something. I mean, the international community should be ashamed of, how they deal with issues. Their discrimination between a cause and another cause. The international community still cannot criticize Israel for what they are practicing against the Palestinians, of course. I mean, it's interesting that the occupation of Palestine is justified by Israel is the only democratic country in the Middle East. This is what people say. We tell them about the occupation, they tell us Israel is the only democratic country in the Middle East. So this is a very weird situation. Anyway, yeah, I think I have to stop here.
Okay, thank you very much, Wisam. Shukran. That's a good point to stop, and I'm sure there will be questions and conversation to follow. There are a couple of comments already in the chat area. Couple of people have actually had the privilege of being to the Waldorf Hotel. So Freya has been there in 2016 and found the museum excellent and the gallery fantastic. Others are expressing concern, of course, about the recent violence around Shireen's funeral. One question specifically, I guess, in terms of the operation of the hotel, and thank you for the great overview you've given us of that. I can't believe I've been to Bethlehem probably 30 or 40 times and have never been to the Waldorf Hotel. So next time, it'll have to be on my list for sure. But one question is whether you, as the owner, manager of the Waldorf Hotel, have had any threats from the Israeli authorities that would put your operation at risk.
No, to be honest, no. We are, Waldorf Hotel is an art installation, and it is the Waldorf Hotel is not anti-Israel, is anti-occupation. We present the Palestinian narrative, or we present the Palestinian story at our museum. And again, to be honest with you, we never had any serious threats. No.
Oh, that's good. I'll avoid sarcastic comments about Israel being great lovers of art, and that must be the reason that they protect your art gallery.
True, yeah.
I won't go there. All right. Other observations or questions from those of us who are in the conversation this afternoon? You'll probably need to unmute yourself. And at this stage, I think you can just ask a question, make a comment without me needing to introduce you. So just unmute your mic and make your comment or question or observation. We'll have about 15 to 20 minutes for this. And then at the end of that time, Susan Wahab will say thank you to Wisam on behalf of us all, and then I'll wrap up with a prayer. So comments, questions, conversation.
Greg, could I ask a question, please?
Certainly.
Wisam, I came to visit in 2016. I'm Freya. Nice to see you.
I remember you. Yes.
Oh, it's so lovely to see you again. I'm so glad to hear you.
Are you from Australia? No, you're not from Australia. Are you?
No, I'm American originally, but think I'm Australian.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
so nice to hear from you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask, in all of this time that you've had so many visitors, except for COVID, are you finding the visitors are mainly solidarity type tourists who come to Palestine, like me, like I was, or are you reaching sort of the unconverted and, they're just tourists who are attracted and learn about Palestine by being attracted to the fashion, the glam that you have. And I just want to say congratulations. You have all done such great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, on the beginning, like when we opened the hotel, most of the people that came to the hotel were Banksy fans. So those Banksy fans are not not all of them have even a clue what's going on here, or even, have connected to Palestine or to the Palestinian issue. Of course, we have some solidarity groups, but I think most of the people that come to the hotel, they are just like normal tourists. They have no idea what it is about. They heard of it. Or lots of Christian pilgrims come to the hotel, again, with no clue of the situation. Most of the people come out shocked to see or to learn about, how we live or what's how things look like in Palestine. So we have all kinds of people, but I would say most of the visitors that come to the hotel, they are not really pro-Palestinians or even related.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, other comments? So let me perhaps build on what you've just been discussing with some. On one of the trips that I was with, and I've led various trips to Palestine, as well as having a couple of years when I was dean of St. George's College in Jerusalem. And we would, of course, come out to Bethlehem every couple of weeks. But I remember one particular trip, I had the misfortune that during the second week of the 3 weeks, I was assigned an Israeli tour guide over my protests. He and I had an interesting week together. By the end, we'd actually reached something of a mutual understanding, but I remember he took us out to Bethlehem, of course. And as we're driving into Bethlehem through the back door, I realized what he was doing. The people on the bus were not going to see anything of the wall. They weren't going to drive through the checkpoint. They weren't going to get stuck in the traffic. And so I had a word with him and said, on the way out, we're going out through the checkpoint. Oh, no. I said, that's why they're here. They want to see what it's like to be a Palestinian. So he complained and fumed and fussed, but that's what we did. But if we hadn't been on the ball to realize, hang on, we're coming in the back way, the folk on the bus would never have noticed anything to do with the wall. So I'm wondering how many Jewish tour groups, or how many tour groups that have a Jewish tour guide actually come to the Waldorf.
Actually, we have some Jewish groups that come to the hotel. Yes, they are from Israel. They come to the hotel, but those groups have to take a kind of a permit from the Israeli army to allow them to come into Bethlehem.
Yeah, it's a dangerous area.
They should do coordination. And recently, because of this situation, we did not see any of these groups coming. But of course, we have individuals who sneak into Bethlehem through, like with their cars, to visit the Waldorf Hotel. Now, for the guides and the Jewish guides, unfortunately, it will not be their interest to come to the Waldorf Hotel, definitely. But some of them come to the Waldorf Hotel because it is requested by the group or members of the group. So I would say that I will ask you to tell people that when they want to come to the Bethlehem, wherever whoever their guide is or whoever their travel agencies is, they could request to do certain things to add to their program. And in this case, whoever the guide is, this thing, visiting a wall, visiting a refugee camp, going to Sabil in Jerusalem, this could be requested. And I think this is so important. It will be also a highlight in on the trip of the people when they see something different than the ordinary pilgrims that they do when they come over here. So those who come to the Waldorf Hotel, usually the request comes from the group, not from the guide himself.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Other questions from folk in the conversation this afternoon?
Greg, if I could just finish something on what you were both talking about. I've led a number of pilgrimages and also Sabil come and see groups to Palestine. And on 2 occasions where I was there in 2014 and 16, I think was the last time. And on 2 occasions we were visiting Yad Vashem, but as part of a broader trip. And we talked about coming to the Waldorf. So 2016 was the last one. So I don't know whether at that point it was in development or whether it was actually open, but we wanted to go and see the site because it was certainly understood that something was happening here. And our Jewish bus driver refused point blank to take us. We had to go back to where we were staying and then make our own way towards where the hotel and so on and the artwork was. Now, I didn't get to go inside, so I don't think you were even open at that point, but there was certainly some knowledge of it. because we could see it from the outside. But we had Palestinian guides who were absolutely being told they had to keep very quiet when we were in a bus with a Jewish bus driver, and we didn't have many Jewish bus drivers. It just so happened that this particular day it was a bit the problem, and we couldn't get to do some of the things we wanted. He refused point blank to take us. However, so you're right in what you say. It has to be driven by the pilgrims or by the people visiting. Even the it's different when you're doing a Sabine group because they obviously highlight it, but when you're going with non-Sabine pilgrim groups from Jerusalem, Palestinian-based, Palestinian-owned Jerusalem, they still at that point you have to dictate what you want to see. It doesn't just happen. So I hope that you are getting support from them now in a way that perhaps in the early days you weren't.
Yeah.
I just wanna add something very interesting that recently, like it happened twice, that some tour leaders they told me that they will come here before they go to Yad Vashem, because also there is another narrative here, another story should be heard, which is the
reason why we wanted to come to you after that. Same reason.
I think it's when people come, whatever their background is, Catholics, Christians, non-Christians, whoever they are, I think it's worth giving some time to learn about our situation. And I would not say that if I live in Greece or if I live in Spain, because our situation is different. We Palestinians are suffering because you don't know much, okay? Because if you know much, and if you are aware, not you, like people around the world, if the people around the world are aware of what's going on in Palestine, I think by time the attitudes of the governments will change and we will get to a different position from where we are today.
No, thank you. That's really, really helpful. Just to give my Israeli tour guide the credit I'm reluctant to give him, it's nonetheless true that when we went to Bethlehem, he engaged a local Palestinian tour guide to work with us during the time we were in Bethlehem. She said, that's Palestinian, you need to hear their story from them.
May I say something?
Yeah, of course.
I just want to add something about this. This is I was a tour guide as well. I mean, to do the when a guide comes to Bethlehem and wants to do the Church of the Nativity or think certain things in Bethlehem, it's a nightmare for the tour guide. So the tour guides, the local tour guides that the Israeli tour guides use sometimes to show them the church or show them other places, they are paid peanuts. So even, if I am not a Palestinian, to be honest with you, I would really hire a tour guide to do that tour for me that day, because it's cheaper for me, it's less headache and less effort. So don't think, and if you will see that most of the local guides, as Mark said, that most of the tour guides, unfortunately, they try not even to speak about something else besides the archaeology and the church and the religion and the sites, because they are afraid that they get in troubles. So it's a little bit critical, complicated issue.
It is. It's very complex, like a lot of things in that part of the world. But certainly in my own case, I've always, because I'm able to do the leading myself, but need to have somebody there to tick off the boxes. But we have places we want to visit, which include the installation at the Jerusalem Peace Center across the road. Had I known about the Waldorf at the time, that would have been on the itinerary as well. Although in 2015, the one I'm talking about, it maybe was not yet open. But it's really, really essential that the people that are organizing the group are attuned to the issues and are willing to specify what they want their participants to experience, and not simply go with the package coming from the tour company or whatever. We've got just a minute or two for any last minute observations or questions from people in the discussion today.
Not wanting to monopolize anything, Greg, I had a very interesting conversation with an Israeli plainclothes security man about the difference, two sides of the same coin between the Nakba and the Holocaust. It spent 15 minutes in a closed-in room and got some very sharp words to explain to me why I had no idea what I was talking about. The Israeli security guy, he did let me in, but it was touch and go. So yeah, I think that the kind of things that Wisam is talking about, he's right. No matter what we think as supporters, if you're not living it, it's still still something that's just impossible to feel. And Wisam, thank you for everything you're doing. It really is amazing.
Yeah.
I hope you guys could come one day and visit.
Inshallah, we'll be there.
Inshallah.
If we can get past the guy at Ben Gurion on the way in. But certainly that's our dream and our commitment. I'm going to ask
Diana's got her hand up.
Okay. Hey, Diana. Oh, there we go. Yep.
Just very briefly, I want to say hi to Wisam. He was my very first tour guide when I went out there for the first time in 2010. So it's lovely to see you again, Wisam. And I was recently in the Waldorf as well with the Amos group. But I wanted to, you talked about Yad Vashem. I went out there on one occasion and it's very firm in showing us Da Yassin before we were taken to Yad Vashem, and I thought that was really helpful to see that what had happened in 1948. I think that was the 9th of April or something, wasn't it? Da Yassin, and the big museum for Yad Vashem, which of course is incredibly moving. But to link the two, I thought was really helpful. Just a comment, that's all. And the work you're doing, Wisam, is absolutely wonderful. And
thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah. The most important part of resistance is the cultural resistance and keeping the story alive, keeping the identity strong, because sooner or later, every oppressive regime will blink and will have to make space for those that have been the victims. So we just pray that it will not be too long before the blink happens. Susan, could I ask you to say thank you to Wisam for us all, and then I'll wrap up with a prayer.
Yes, before I say thank you, I just wanted to actually make a comment. Just before this, just before this session, actually, I was watching about this English chef who went to South Africa and was visiting Soweto and visiting, places where Nelson Mandela's home, the prison that he was in. And, it's part of the story is about the food, but it's actually after the collapse of South Africa's apartheid. And the tour guides were Black Africans that were touring with him and showing him, Desmond Tutu's house and Nelson Mandela's house. And I actually didn't know what you were going to talk about today. I heard about the Waldorf Hotel. I've never looked at the photos, never looked at these, this amazing art while you're doing your talk with Sam. I've been looking at your website and looking at the art, and I don't know why I made the connection between what I've just watched on TV about these places that have become museums including Nelson Mandela's house and Desmond Tutu's house. And then we talk about the Waldorf Hotel now. And I have a feeling it might be 1 year, it might be 10 years, and it might be 100 years. But the collapse of the Israeli apartheid will definitely come. It's not because I'm Palestinian, but because it is a natural thing that will happen. When you say, I do not accept this occupation, we as a people, if we keep saying we do not, and we keep telling the story, because you mentioned the story, you said in the beginning when you first started, you said that we have a responsibility to tell our story. So if every single Palestinian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish, whether you're a Druze, whether you're a Baha'i, your responsibility is to tell the story, your story. We have lots of stories, just like the Jewish people are telling their stories. We have the right to tell our story too. And we have lots of stories of Nakba, dispossession, and occupation. But I like what you said about you want to educate the Israelis and this new generation that don't know anything about or have not dealt with Palestinians. And that is our responsibility, because the only way is to actually get the two people to make peace with each other. If we're going to rely on the Americans, it will never happen, because both people, no matter what position we are in, we are definitely victims to the empire. And if we get to see that, then we can make peace with each other. Because you said we the Palestinians are, we were Jews, we were Christians, we were, Muslims. So I want to thank you for this talk today. It's very important that we tell the stories. Now I can't wait to go back to Palestine. The last time I was there was in 2010, and there was no Waldorf Hotel. And I actually walked past, the wall, I walked through that, the big 8-meter wall. But it would be lovely to come, and probably I would like to rent the most expensive room in the hotel. So I know that it feels like the situation is hopeless, and as you said, since the day you were born, it feels like nothing will change or nothing has changed. But nothing stays the same, and we know that. Our faith in God, no matter who, whether you're Christian, Muslim, or Jews, our faith in God is that the salvation for the human being is right there when we all come and love each other and make peace with each other. And what you are doing, you are making peace. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, Susan. Just want to say something before we finish this session, that like 35 years ago, the apartheid in South Africa was still happening, and that got lots of support from lots of people around the world. Today we are in a situation where I bet, like, wherever you go, you will never see any person who would dare to say that I supported the apartheid in South Africa. People are ashamed, and soon or later people will be ashamed to say that they supported the apartheid in Palestine.
Yeah, I actually have a few South African clients. And one of them is Jewish, and a lot of them are actually just Anglo, they're really English. And they all have to justify themselves saying, I did not support apartheid. They live in Australia now. I did not support apartheid. That's not me. It's not me. It wasn't me.
Of course, yeah.
Yes, and I know that it will happen. It will happen like that. it might take, it might take time, but it will happen.
Okay, shukran, ya
So,
Susan.
thank you.
Thank you, Wisam.
And thank you for speaking from the heart, Susan.
I did not mean to. I had it ready to go,
It was good. Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, these are things that matter deeply to all of us. Some of us live the reality. Some of us are engaged by choice. Many of us, those from outside, of course, engage from a position of privilege. I remember within a couple of days of starting as Dean of St. George's College, I was taken out to Ramallah by one of my staff and a good friend of mine, and he made a point of supposedly showing me how to find the international exit on the basis that if I was ever in Ramallah when trouble erupted, I was to head to this particular exit. And because I have an Australian passport, I would immediately be set free and taken to safety. Of course, I would never have found that exit because my knowledge of Ramallah wasn't good enough at the time. I might be able to find it now, but certainly not then. So I'm always conscious that I'm not local, and I do have an international air ticket called an Australian passport when I'm in this situation. And so that adds a degree of humility and a sense of just awe for those who stand so firm and steadfast in a horrific, overwhelming situation. So our prayer for you, Wisam, and our prayer for Sabeel, whether it's in Al-Quds or in Nazareth or any of the other places around the world, is that God's kingdom will come and that we will see justice and peace in our time.
Amen.
Amen. So thank you, friends. Wisam, I'm so looking forward to spending some time in your hotel. I'm not sure I'm going to volunteer to buy the most expensive room, but
No.
I certainly look forward to a corner in your hotel at some stage. Thank you, my friend. And thank you, Omar, for facilitating all of this and setting up all the arrangements in the background. Go in peace. And for those of us in Australia, we can turn on our ABC News television broadcast with Anthony Green, and we can watch the dismissal of the Morrison government, inshallah.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you all. Have a blessed weekend and good luck with your elections.
Shukran, Habibi.
Thank you, Omar.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you.